Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock that I think you guys will dig if you like the same kind of music as me. I really try to put a spotlight on some of the newer bands of the genre who are struggling and trying to get their music out there. I want to be a voice for those musicians and let everyone know how incredible they are and how worth your time and money their music is. So today I have a super great one, a new band that I'm becoming slowly obsessed with, and this is Brass Camel and their latest album called Camel. This is a fantastic outfit. They've been out for a few years now. This is their second album. They're from Vancouver, Canada, and their first album is called Brass, and this album's called Camel, and the band, of course, is Brass Camel, so that makes sense. And they have a very 70s style aesthetic, of course, as a lot of the music I talk about does. But I feel like they bring a cool modern edge to it that makes it feel fresh and vibrant. These younger musicians just bringing a lot of energy to the table. And rather than just being straight ahead progressive rock, whereas there are progressive rock influences certainly very omnipresent in this music, they have a bit of a funkier edge than you might expect from most prog bands. They have this kind of blend between 70s classic rock and funk and prog, all mixed into this stew that's just very satisfying as a listener and right in my wheelhouse personally of what I love to listen to in music. They remind me of a fellow Canadian band called Ben Sinister, which also plays within this kind of classic rock style with a little bit of a funk feel. But I feel like Brass Camel brings a lot more of prog energy to their music than what Ben Sinister does. Both bands excellent and well worth checking out and exploring. But Brass Camel is really bringing a lot of prog spirit into their music, which of course works well for me as a listener since I'm the big prog head on YouTube here, and everything prog is going to be interesting to my ears, and it gives it more of an expanded, just adventurous feel, which is really appreciated, and I love that about this album. It's bookended by two big prog pieces. They're about 10 minutes in length each one, and they really bring the prog factor in big, fascinating ways. Zealot owes a lot to Rush, I think, and its aesthetic and sound. Sounds like it comes from like Hemisphere era, Cygnus style Rush. Definitely has that kind of chaotic soundscape, but really driven by this rock feel and these really great guitar riffs. I just absolutely love it. There's some really cool organ stabs, furious playing, infectious grooves come into the mix in the vocal section, which is what sets them apart to me, is they have these cool proggy sections where they're able to really showcase their instrumental prowess, and then it kind of settles itself in this very groove feel. Where you're really bouncing your head along to the music and really infectious and fun to listen to. The lead singer on this track sounds a lot to me like Dynasty Young from Styx, and they have kind of that punk rock kind of feel that Styx or Queen or Supertramp kind of have in their arsenal. But this track in particular has a bit of a heavier, darker nature to it with very impassioned vocals. Has a lot of proggy kind of sci-fi feel to it in its soundscape and in some of these like intermittent synths and things that come across throughout the track, and it's just a prog tour de force really, and a great way to kick off this album and to excite the prog fan in me and in hopefully you as you listen to this record. The final track, Another Day, is equally fun and maybe owes a bit more to the Queen side of their sound with a bit more anthemic kind of Brian May style guitars and layered Freddie Mercury style vocals. Starts with these tinkling keys and kind of ambient noise before the band kicks into that brighter sound. We move into a driving beat and percussive flourishes as we ramp up some of the drama intensity throughout the track. There's a great instrumental section driven by this great triumphant synth lead before we get rocked out with this cool guitar solo. This instrumental interplay just continues forward and gives a chance for all musicians in the group to shine. Some truly proggy brilliance soaring to epic heights and a big epic finale that just brings a huge massive smile to my face. There's a lot to love about these tracks and a lot of great exploration from the band members. Daniel Svinston is the electric guitarist and vocalist. Curtis Arsenault is the bass player and also does vocals. Aubrey Elfson does keyboards and vocals. Wyatt Gilson, drums and percussion, and Dylan Lammy on electric guitar are the members of this band, and I want to highlight them because of how brilliant they do on this record. But sandwiched in the middle of these bigger prog epic tracks are some more straightforward, kind of classic rock sounding, funk-filled, groovy tracks. I just absolutely love how they get into this groove and into this drive that just makes you bop your head along to it and is just really exciting. But there's plenty of little prog flourishes throughout that keep your interest and intention as a prog fan. Pick of the Litter has these big drums, these cool harmony vocals, kind of brings to mind Supertramp or Styx, a bit of that punk rock feel, a bit of Queen influence as well. But you get those funkified, groove-laden verses and a bit of a spoken word style vocal. Really fun. Chain Reaction has a very classic rock sound, switches between funky, grooving verses and slower choruses with big harmonies, and lots of little cool prog flourishes throughout the track. On the other side, it begins very funky with a very decidedly cool rock swagger, just cool, fun music. I love their usage of vintage keyboards to kind of keep it in the era of the 70s, but of course bringing that modern edge and modern sensibility and energy and vibrancy. I love the stop and start middle section with fantastic expressive guitar soloing that's allowed to noodle on its own a while the band backs away, and it's a really cool, fun section, and I can imagine would be a lot of fun to play live. And then Borrowed Time, which I believe they released as a bit of an early single, has a bouncy, funky feel to it, a lot of stomping intensity and a blistering guitar solo, just infectious, fun, and groovy. It's only a couple minutes long, but it's well worth its time. And I love all these smaller tracks in the middle, and I think it's a really interesting way to frame the album, to have these kind of bigger prog pieces on either side and have the more fun, classic rock, grooving, funky tracks in the middle, which they do excellently well. And this album I love so much that I explored into their previous album, which is also very brilliant and has a lot of that kind of funky feel to it as well. If you're into that, then you're going to be a big fan of this record, just like I am. And I can't sing its praises hard enough. I'm trying to get the word out there to people, since I know this is maybe a more obscure band that a lot of you may not have heard of, that this is well worth checking out, well worth spending some time with, going out and pre-ordering the album, the vinyl release. I believe it's available for pre-order through their own website. Their first album also is for sale on vinyl. I've heard inklings that they may be releasing CD versions as well of these albums, but that's not confirmed. But of course, you can also check it out on Bandcamp, also on your streaming service of choice. This record just came out last week, and I'm so glad I was introduced to it. And I hope the best for the band moving forward. They're just a fun band. You could tell that they just have fun playing this style of music together. And I just love their aesthetic. I love the kind of classic rock, funky feel that they bring to the table. And that's kind of music that speaks to me and was some of the early music that got me into listening to music in general. Some of that classic rock, some Led Zeppelin, some Steely Dan, some of that cool 70s rock. And I think they have the bedrock of that kind of music, and then add in this cool prog feel to kind of beef out their sound, add a lot of extra adventurous, cool elements, bring this kind of Rush and Yes aesthetic to the table to really deliver something that's fun and exciting for the listener of any of those styles. So can't recommend this enough. One of my favorite albums I've heard this year for sure. One of my favorite new discoveries in the scene. And hopefully they have a bright future ahead and have many great future albums under their sleeve to bring out to the masses in short order. I am a new devoted fan and very excited for their future. To be here as their cheerleader and promoter of any new albums and any new projects that they put out there. Very good, and I hope you guys will go check it out. So thank you guys for joining me for this review, and hopefully you guys will check me out in future episodes. Thank you so much. Enjoy the music, everybody.